Hello, and welcome to another edition of Watching Washington, a public affairs program from the Brian Lamb School of Communication at Purdue. Today is Sunday, October 12th, and we're glad to welcome you back to our studio in West Lafayette. I'm Bella Cozy.
And I'm Rosalie Degenhart. Let's take a look at the top stories from Washington this week. On Saturday, President Donald Trump authorized the deployment of 300 National Guard troops to Chicago. The Guard members' primary mission will be to protect federal officers and property in Chicago, following Illinois Governor J.B. Pritzker's opposition to the deployment. The president's action comes after protesters gathered at an Immigration and Customs Enforcement facility on Friday. The demonstration led to more than a dozen arrests. Governor Pritzker said the Defense Department gave him an ultimatum on Saturday. Either he authorized the deployment of National Guard troops or the federal government will do it.
If you look at Chicago, Chicago's a great city where there's a lot of crime. And if the governor can't do the job, we'll do the job. It's all very simple. They probably had 50 murders in Chicago over the last 5, 6, 7 months. Many people were shot. And then the governor gets up and he says, well, we can handle it. They can't handle it. They don't know what they're doing. The mayor is grossly incompetent. He's at a 4% approval rating in Chicago. He's at a 4%, lowest approval rating, lower than even de Blasio had, which is hard to believe in New York. I thought de Blasio would always maintain that record, but the Chicago guy is even lower. So I think that we want safe cities.
Following this, the Reuters and Ipsos poll found that 58% of Americans say the president should only send the National Guard to face external threats. They also found that 83% support military neutrality and 10% favor choosing a side.
The new Supreme Court term began this past Monday, October 6th. Here are 3 cases to watch out for this fall. Learning Resources versus Trump examines whether tariffs issued by President Trump are constitutional. Trump argues they are under the Internal Emergency Economic Powers Act, which allows the president to regulate imports and exports in the midst of unusual threats and economic emergencies. However, the 2 small businesses that brought the case forward argue the power to issue tariffs is reserved for Congress and that trade deficits are not new. They say, no other president has used this act to impose tariffs. Bost vs. Illinois State Board of Elections has heard this past Wednesday regarding mail-in ballots. According to Illinois state law, mail-in ballots may be counted up to 2 weeks after Election Day. If postmarked on Election Day, Illinois District 12 Representative Michael Bost argues that his margin of victory was negatively impacted by this law, as he had to allocate campaign funds to pay for poll watchers for the additional 14 days. The third case to follow is Louisiana versus Calais. A source in New Orleans says this could reshape how minority populations and their votes are protected across the country. This started in 2022 when Louisiana's congressional districts were redrawn. While black votes make up a third of the population in Louisiana, only 1 of 6 districts were majority black. Black voters took this issue to court and a second majority black district was created. In response, white voters argued the action violated the Voting Rights Act, in which drawing redistricts based on race is unconstitutional. The final resolutions for these cases are expected by June 2026. We have yet to see their impact on the economy and voting in the midterm elections.
Former FBI Director James Comey has entered a plea of not guilty during his arraignment on Wednesday, October 8th. Comey was indicted last month by a federal grand jury for allegedly making false statements and obstruction. His charges stem from the statements he made to the Senate Judiciary Committee in September of 2020 related to the Trump-Russia communication probe conducted by the FBI in 2016. The former FBI director has long been an adversary of President Trump, but Comey has maintained that he will not be intimidated and intends to file a dismissal of the charges.
The ongoing government shutdown is beginning to impact air travel. A dozen Federal Aviation Administration facilities across the U.S. saw staffing shortages as air traffic controllers call out sick. The FAA is reducing the number of arriving flights per hour at Chicago O'Hare, citing staffing with average delays of 41 minutes. The public is worried and wants answers on what to expect with flying.
It's common to have 1 or 2 people calling sick on a shift. We have facilities that have 300 people. We have facilities that have 11 people. And when you have crews and they're broken down, there's somebody that's going to lose their medical clearance because they had to take a medication. There's somebody that had to call in sick. The people are going to show up. They're going to do their job. What I'm concerned with, what the flying public's concerned with, is as this continues, what it does to the air traffic controllers, the fatigue that it creates.
More than 20% of flights at Chicago O'Hare and Nashville have been delayed. As we go into fall break here at Purdue University, we can expect large crowds and many flights departing from Indy and Chicago.
U.S. Attorney General Pam Bondi appeared before the Senate Judiciary Committee on Tuesday. Senators questioned her on the Department of Justice handling of high-profile investigations and allegations of political bias under the Trump administration. Bondi defended the DOJ, saying the department is focused on real crime and ending the weaponization of justice. She denied any partisan influence and, at times, clashed with Democratic senators when she did not answer questions about ongoing investigations, like the investigation into Jeffrey Epstein. She also didn't answer questions regarding her conversations with White House officials or regarding firings in the DOJ. Here's a clip from C-SPAN showing a conversation with Bondi and U.S. Senator Richard Blumenthal of Connecticut.
Of James Comey.
Senator, I am not going to discuss any conversations I have or have not had with the President of the United
Did you
States.
see that
You're
post?
an attorney, you have a law degree, and you know that I'm not going to do that. I also find it fascinating, because I'll keep fighting to ensure that law enforcement and the judicial process move forward without political interference. No one is above the law, not even the president. That's a quote from you, Senator Blumenthal, in 2017.
Well, let me ask you then, when you saw that post,
no one is above the law. That was your quote.
When you saw that post, did you talk to anybody in the White House?
I am not going to discuss any conversations I have, nor any investigations,
So
nor
you were unwilling to tell
pending
this committee
cases.
about conversations with the White House
And if I may
regarding James
continue,
Comey's indictment.
and if I may
Let me
continue,
show you a picture.
James Comey was indicted by one of the most liberal grand juries in the United States.
The 5-hour hearing reflects ongoing concerns in Congress about transparency, accountability, and the Justice Department's role in maintaining public trust. It also left both political parties accusing the other of dismantling the Justice Department for partisan prosecutions through political weaponization.
Up next, meet the 3 new Nobel Prize for Chemistry winners.
Plus, here's what's making headlines across the globe from France to Japan. Stay with us. More Watching Washington next.
In a world where Olympics and Paralympics are unified as one, and where all athletes at all levels have equal opportunities to play and perform at their full potential.
Athletics has been such an influential and transformative aspect of my life. So to me, RISE is about ensuring that every person that has the desire to participate in sport has the opportunity to do so.
This organization is about recognition. We believe in recognizing excellence where it is found, especially in Paralympic sports.
RISE is about driving change in our community and beyond. We hope that through our events and initiatives, we can galvanize people for our cause and inspire them to create an ever-growing network to help achieve our mission.
It's about connecting people of various backgrounds and who truly care about creating meaningful change together.
We develop projects and hold events to bring people together at the interface of inclusivity, sports, and engineering.
Our goal is to promote the equality of all sports and to improve sports performance and accessibility.
Join us so that you can have a major contribution in creating meaningful change.
Thank you. Just trying to be happy.
On Wednesday, 3 scientists won the Nobel Prize in Chemistry for the development of metal organic frameworks. These frameworks could eventually help reduce pollution and combat climate change. The trio's new form of molecular architecture can absorb and contain gases inside stable metal organic frameworks. The frameworks can be compared to the timber framework of a house, small on the outside but very large on the inside. While the chemists worked separately, they added to each other's breakthroughs. The award ceremony for the prize winners will be held on December 10th, the anniversary of the death of Alfred Nobel, who funded the prizes.
After less than a month on the job, French Prime Minister Sébastien Lecornu has resigned. Lecornu made the announcement Monday, just hours after unveiling his new cabinet, sending political shockwaves across France. Lecornu blamed endless party divisions and egos in parliament. Both the left and right blasted his cabinet as a betrayal of his promise for a change. Markets fell as plans for Tuesday's budget vote collapsed. Political science say it is now up to President Macron to decide whether to dissolve parliament or call for new presidential elections.
Japan seems poised to elect its first ever female prime minister. More on that and what it means for international relations with reporter Hanako Montgomery.
For the first time in history, Japan's ruling party has a woman at the top. Sanae Takaichi is now the president of the Liberal Democratic Party, and she's on track to become the country's first ever woman prime minister. Now, in her victory speech earlier on Saturday, Takaichi recognized the amount of work that lies ahead of her and her party.
You will work like draft horses. I myself will throw away the very phrase work-life balance. I will work and work and work and work and keep on working.
Now, there is plenty of work that lies ahead for Takaichi if she does become the country's prime minister. Takaichi will inherit a country grappling with record inflation and the highest cost of living in decades. In order to solve these issues, she's floated cutting consumption tax on food to zero, while vowing to continue the stimulus-heavy economic policies championed by her mentor, former Prime Minister Shinzo Abe. Now, on foreign policy, Takaichi stresses the importance of Japan's alliance with the United States, but under a Japan-first approach. She's even signaled that she may revisit elements of recent trade and investment deals with Washington. Now, at home, she's a staunch conservative, anti-immigration, a defense hawk, and a regular visitor to the controversial Yasukuni Shrine, positions that have already fueled tensions with China and South Korea, two of Japan's neighbors. Now, analysts say her rise reflects a broader political shift as well. With the LDP losing voters to new right-wing populist parties, Takaichi's election is seen as a move to shore up the party's conservative base. Now, she's not prime minister just yet. Parliament still has to confirm her later this month. But one thing is clear, Japan's politics look set to shift more towards the right. Hanako Montgomery, CNN, Tokyo.
Either way, Japan will finalize its decision later this month.
Denmark Prime Minister Mette Frederiksen announced plans to push a social media ban for children under 15. The proposal also gives parents the option to approve social media use for children 13 and older. This comes after the country banned phones from primary schools and after-school programs. Social media age restrictions are not new, as Australia passed the world's first law banning social media use for children last year. That law also requires tech companies to take steps towards preventing underage users from accessing social media platforms. Failure to take these steps would result in a $50 million fine. TikTok and other social media platforms have begun running ads claiming that these platforms are also educational to counter these bans. Despite these efforts, Norway and Greece are also considering social media restrictions, and it is possible that more nations will follow.
Our in-studio guests this week are Purdue Student Government President Rebecca Siener and Vice President Nicholas Newman.
The full interview on the Lifeline Law and other PSG priorities for the school year is just ahead on Watching Washington.
Change that much. Our league is just ominous, and you better lace them up tight and be ready to play every night. If not, you're going to get beaten.
We have two special guests from Purdue Student Government with us in the studio this week. Let's go now to Watching Washington's Paige Gonzalez, who is standing by with this week's interview with President Steiner and Vice President Newman.
Thank you. That's right, I've got PSG President Rebecca Siener and Vice President Nicholas Newman with me today to discuss the Indiana Lifeline Law, transportation, and other priorities for this year. Thank you guys so much for being here.
Of course.
Our first question today is about the Indiana Lifeline Law. What is it, and what changes have you seen on campus now that it's been enacted?
Yeah, so the Indiana Lifeline Law provides amnesty from arrest or prosecution to those seeking medical attention for underage drinking, right? The Indiana Lifeline Law has several components to it, but more specifically what we worked on last year was who was protected under this law, right? Before, it was only the person who called, as well as those who stayed on scene and assisted the caller. The person in need of medical attention, the person who was suffering from an underage drinking medical emergency, was not protected. We actually spent last year expanding this law, and it went into effect July 1st, 2025, so this past summer, to protect the person in need of medical attention as well. So now all three parties are protected. The person in need of medical attention, the caller, and those who assist the caller stay on scene and remain compliant. So now students don't have any reason not to make the call, and there should be no hesitation in those sort of circumstances. And the whole goal of this mission was just to empower students to make the call in a medical emergency involving underage drinking.
Awesome, thank you. The next question we have is about the impacts you've seen on campus because of the Lifeline Law. Have you seen people making the call?
Yeah, okay, actually, it was interesting because last year, when we were really talking about it and really advocating for it, it was interesting because I had several conversations with university admin just about the fact that more students were aware of what the Lifeline Law was, as well as just there were more students making the call and feeling more empowered to make the call. Just because, we were kind of reducing that hesitation in those circumstances. And that was very, very cool to see and inspiring, and I think it kind of motivated us to keep pursuing this project and actually get the law passed. So yeah, it was very, very inspirational.
Awesome. Our next question is about another hot button topic on campus, transportation. Are there things that PSG is currently working on to improve the state of transportation on campus?
Yeah, absolutely. So as it pertains to transportation, right now our Senate, so within our legislative branch, has formed an ad hoc specifically about transportation issues and as it pertains to our undergraduate student body. So as it pertains to transportation, we're currently working with the Administrative Operations Transportation team to analyze and survey the students to gather their feedback about the transportation systems. Because there have been a lot of significant changes from last year to this year, changing providers from City Bus to SP Plus, and then also with the recent announcement that the connector bus is no longer running. So there are a lot of critical issues that are impacting our students. So currently our senators, specifically Senator Wilner, is really leading the charge and working with administration and working with the transportation team to ensure that the routes are the most efficient for our students, that they're ADA accessible as promised, and to also make sure that this transition between the systems is being properly communicated to the students. And that's a lot of the role of where Purdue Student Government comes in, is that feedback and then the communication of ensuring that our students understand what's going on, but also passing on feedback directly to the transportation team. Currently, the transportation team just released a brand new survey this past week in which students, faculty, graduate students can provide feedback on what those systems look like, both for the fixed routes, so the 3 routes on campus, and then also on the on-demand shuttles. So there's a lot of work that is currently in motion right now, and we're hoping that we'll see some changes to the transportation system after the survey concludes, and we can really see how the actual student body is feeling about this system.
Yeah, and I think the most vital component to this is that the university absolutely does need student feedback with this because of the switch from City Bus to SP Transport. Now the university has more purview over what the routes are, and so they can kind of adjust these things along the way as long as students are providing the feedback for them to do so.
And actually, when talking about Senate and its role, what does the Student Senate do? Many students on campus may not understand the role of the Senate or how they can influence change. What can they do about transportation?
Absolutely. So as vice president of the student body, I also serve as president of the Senate and have the purview of the legislative branch. The legislative branch writes bills and resolutions. Bills are internal to PSG, so things within our organization that typically aren't really outwardly facing, budget, appointments. But then we also write resolutions, and those resolutions are resolutions for actions or recommendations for actions. So once legislation is written and passes our chamber, then I distribute it either to university administration or to the faculty university senate to then be considered in their chamber as well. So the goal would be that the legislation that is written through our chamber is then distributed to either the administration or the department it affects, or going straight to University Senate for implementation. So as it pertains to transportation, this Transportation Ad Hoc Committee was formed to be the primary contact between the students and the faculty on this issue. Because as Becca said, really it's the administration needing the feedback on how the system is actually working. While the administration is also riding the buses, they don't see the experiences that our students are seeing every single hour of the day on the transportation systems. So that is really where the purview of the Transportation Ad Hoc is. Right now, they're actually not really writing legislation about transportation. Instead, they're working directly with the administration to ensure that these changes are being implemented as we're hearing the feedback from students.
Awesome, thank you. My final question, are there any other initiatives that PSG is working on this year that the student body should know about?
Yeah, honestly, a big one that we've been researching more lately is the quality of student housing and, landlord-tenant concerns on our campus. We actually had a meeting with Mayor Easter 2 weeks ago now, a week and a half ago now, and this was a concern that she had brought up over the summer, and we had discussed it, and then I was like, okay, let's do a follow-up meeting just to kind of look further into it. And it's really interesting because Indiana statute is very vague when it comes to renter rights. Things like, it might define conditions as safe, clean, and habitable, right? But what qualifies as safe, clean, and habitable? Like, is a unit safe, clean, and habitable by what standards, right? And so like a lot of other state statute will quantify things or like list out what defines safe, clean, and habitable, right? Whether that be having a carbon monoxide detector, a fire extinguisher, it can't have mold, pest-related things, and really. The current statute just kind of lists things like carbon monoxide detectors and fire extinguishers. It doesn't really go into things like mold or pests or other or other details in regard to the quality of housing on campus. And it's actually really interesting because specifically for Bloomington, West Lafayette, and Goshen, we have grandfathered in statute that has existed since I believe the 70s, and that specifically impacts the renter rights of these college towns. But.
And what we're seeing specifically on Purdue's campus, while the housing stock is increasing, I mean, we're seeing, it feels like dozens of apartment buildings being built every single year. The quality of the existing housing on campus is questionable in some locations. I mean, I can provide an example just from my own apartment. My own apartment got struck by lightning, and then our fire alarm didn't go off because it was an external fire and not an internal fire. And so it wasn't required by state code. And it's a lot of these small things that we're seeing. For example, right now the code only says there has to be reasonable time given for a landlord to enter a tenant's apartment. What is reasonable time? Is it 24 hours? Is it 48? Is it 30 minutes before? And so it's really those ambiguities that we're starting to look at because it is what is truly impacting our Purdue students.
Yeah, and a lot of statutes do quantify it when it comes to things like reasonable notice and when a landlord can enter a unit. And I feel like there's little things that could be added into statute that would add up and improve the quality of housing across the state of Indiana and specifically in regards to college towns. But something that some states have too is that in regards to, let's say, it is a college campus and there's a student who wants to go on study abroad or, they're graduating early and they didn't know, or they're withdrawing or they're transferring, or, they have visa issues or something related to that. Typically, they can give reasonable notice to the landlord to withdraw from their contract and so that they can actually move out. But that's not the situation within the state of Indiana. But
Wow. Well, thank you so much for your time today and answering a lot of these questions. And my last little comment, what's a piece of advice you may have for students who want to make change on campus and get involved?
Do you want to go first?
Yeah, I would say for those who want to make change and get involved, for one, join Purdue Student Government. We would love to have you. Always a shameless plug. I have no shame there. But I would also say my true piece of advice is I think that Purdue students don't really realize how easy it is to meet with people on these topics. If you have a question, obviously you can of course come to Purdue Student Government, but any student can email faculty, any student can email admin, and most of the time
they'll be able to find a time to be able to talk about issues and to be able to hear what you have to say. I feel like students have this mentality that, oh, I can't like reach out to the people who are impacting on these issues. But what we've consistently heard from a lot of faculty is like, we want feedback. And that's really what is improving the systems and programs that we have in place at Purdue, is the feedback. So I would just empower students to look up on the Purdue directory of who they need to reach out to. And if that doesn't work, then come to Purdue Student Government and we'll try to connect you as well.
Yeah, and I would just say, that's such an important part of our organization, and our purpose on campus is we are here to get you a seat at the table. And so if, your initial reach out to some faculty isn't getting you a seat at that table, please reach out to us so that we can try and push ourselves. But specifically, I would say, if you want to get involved and make change on campus or the local level or the state level, something that I've always deeply believed, and I've spoken on a few times, is I believe in this idea of delusional ambition, right? Nothing is not tangible. You can really accomplish anything you want if you actually have enough ambition to do so. And I think that's like really important for people to understand. I hate when people say like an initiative is like too ambitious. Like, nothing is too ambitious. There is no such thing. I don't believe in limits. I don't believe there's such thing as too much ambition. I think there's always like a bit of realism in every single thing that you want to accomplish. But yeah.
Well, thank you so much for coming on today. That is all the time we have, so thank you to our guests from Purdue Student Government, and thank you for watching. See you next time on Watching Washington.